The cloistered world of 1930s medical academia, for all its rigorous demands, had done little to steel young physicians like John Kerner for the brutalities of war. Technically adept, yes, but psychologically, they were profoundly unequipped for the coming storm. That storm broke on Christmas Eve, 1943, when a telegram tore Kerner from his planned residency, thrusting him into an unforeseen combat role. His subsequent assignment to the 10th Mountain Division was a clear, unyielding signal the battlefield, not the operating theatre, was his future. Specialist roles dissolved, replaced by the grim imperative of direct combat preparation. The military training that followed was a relentless crucible, stripping away any lingering civilian softness. It wasn't glamorous, it was a shock to the system for these former medical students. A brutal initiation that hammered home the when, not if, of deployment. This harsh regimen, from the frigid maneuvers with the 10th Mountain Division at high altitudes to the ceaseless marches through rain and slush, forged a new kind of resilience. Their physical and mental limits were tested daily, transforming them into hardened, adaptable soldiers. By April 1944, the shift from the specialized Mountain Division to a unit bound for overseas deployment marked a definitive, irreversible step towards the European theatre. The arduous 2-week voyage across the Atlantic, cramped and tense under the constant threat of U-boats, culminated in their arrival in a war-scarred England. Here, amidst the monumental ruin of bombed cities and the pervasive blackout, a new challenge emerged, a deepening sense of alienation from the life they had known, superficial encounters with locals, and the dulling routine of preparation in places like Bodmin. Cornwall only sharpened the emotional distance, a stark reminder that their pre-war selves were rapidly fading. As May 1944 dawned, the air in England crackled with the escalating anxiety of the impending invasion of northern France. Rigorous training for amphibious landings consumed their days. Each practiced descent into a Higgins boat, a visceral reminder of the dangers to come. In this atmosphere of profound apprehension, soldiers instinctively sought out moments of human connection, a desperate anchor in the turbulent sea of war. It was at a Red Cross canteen, a vital oasis of respite, that the narrator met Anne. This encounter, and the subsequent invitation to her family's hotel, marked a profound turning point. For a fleeting period, the pervasive military anxiety receded, replaced by the warmth of personal connection and a quiet space for reflection. It was a brief, precious return to a semblance of normalcy, a reminder of the humanity they were fighting to protect, and a solace found amidst the looming conflict. The gravity of their mission was underscored by the highest echelons of Allied command. General Eisenhower, Winston Churchill, and George Patton themselves reviewed the division, their presence a potent symbol of the invasion's imminence and the immense weight of the task ahead. The soldiers, now physically hardened and psychologically transformed by months of relentless training, stood on the brink. They were no longer the men who had left their civilian lives behind. They were warriors, facing the unknown realities of combat with a newly forged resilience, their personal connections a fragile shield against the terror to come. The Normandy coastline, a scarred testament to the D-Day landings, was where the real education began. Not on June 6th, but in the chaotic weeks that followed, the 110th Medical Battalion arrived on Omaha Beach. The air still thick, with the stench of pulverized earth and spent cordite, the landscape spoke of brutal destruction. Engineers, improvising with desperate ingenuity, had carved a makeshift road from the wreckage. But the sheer, menacing cliffs of Normandy loomed, a constant reminder that the grand plans drawn on maps often dissolved in the face of unyielding terrain and a determined enemy. The gap between meticulous strategy and the raw, visceral reality of combat was a chasm that swallowed men whole. Immediately, the unforgiving nature of Normandy's hedgerow country became apparent. These ancient, earthen walls, dense with tangled roots and thorny bushes, were not merely obstacles. They were fortified bunkers, perfect emplacements for machine guns and mortars, turning every field into a killing zone. They offered the Germans an impenetrable defense, a stark contrast to the open field warfare many had trained for, making the ground campaign a brutal yard-by-yard crawl. For the close-knit National Guard units where men had known each other since childhood, the sight of friends suffering horrible wounds in these confined, deadly spaces intensified the emotional toll, forging a shared grief that few civilians could comprehend. The medical doctrine, largely a relic of World War I, proved lethally inadequate. The classic army approach, relying on slow, dangerous hand-carried litter evacuations, was a death sentence in the new, fast-paced blitzkrieg style of combat. It took an hour or two to move a wounded man, time he rarely had. But out of this chaos, innovation bloomed from the ground up, driven by the desperate ingenuity of those on the front lines. The narrator, initially overwhelmed and struggling, even to administer a morphine syrette, rapidly learned through direct, brutal experience. He became instrumental in implementing new methods, not from the book but from necessity. Jeeps, once mere transport, were quickly adapted with custom racks, transforming them into life-saving ambulances, capable of evacuating up to 4 men in 30 minutes. This innovative spirit of our fighting men, unbound by rigid doctrine, drastically improved survival rates, giving a wounded man a 90% chance if he reached an aid station alive. Resourceful drivers like Gangster, a former rum runner, navigated the perilous routes with a reckless skill that saved countless lives, embodying the ground-level defiance of outdated thinking. The sheer volume and severity of injuries were overwhelming. The division, inexperienced in modern combat, plunged into a reality that instantly depleted resources and tested every man. Aid men, many chosen not for medical training, but for being least likely to make fighting men, suddenly found themselves on the front lines. The constant, desperate cry of medic, day and night, echoed through the fields, a sound that etched itself into the very soul. The aid station, often located a terrifying 400 yards from the enemy, instilled a pervasive fear, especially after commanding officers had retreated. Medics moved their station almost daily, improvising crude shelters from pup tents to escape the relentless rain and create blacked-out areas at night. Food was a monotonous cycle of K-rations, small boxes of high-fat crackers, fruit bars, hard candy, and powdered drinks. Many, rarely drinking the fruit juice, developed scurvy, their bodies craving fresh sustenance. The narrator, though, found a small act of defiance and comfort in making applesauce from Normandy's abundant apple trees. He sometimes resorted to benzedrine to stave off the crushing physical and mental exhaustion that threatened to consume him. IV plasma, crucial for battling shock, came in square boxes, requiring makeshift supports, like bayonets plunged into rifle stocks, a testament to the desperate improvisation required in a war of scarcity. The first day of the attack on St. Lo was a disaster, a deluge of casualties that exposed the brutal ineffectiveness of their training. The narrator witnessed scenes that would forever alter him. Like a civilian courtyard after a German shell attack, splashed with blood and full of bodies, 20, with about as many dead, lay among the civilian casualties. His desperate attempts to save a young girl, unconscious with a flickering heartbeat, mirroring his nieces back home, intensified his fury and hatred towards the Germans, driving a desire for retribution that would burn within him. As the fighting intensified in hedgerow country, particularly during intense offensives, combat medicine became a visceral country's speed. Ground-level struggle. Upon arriving as a battalion surgeon in July 1944, the narrator took over an aid station where 3 medical officers had already departed due to wounds or combat fatigue. He quickly realized that rigid doctrine was useless. Sulfanilamide powder, though developed by his own surgery professor, often interfered with healing. He preferred a liquid form or simply irrigating wounds with water or dilute soap. He had to teach his aid men new methods, prioritizing immediate survival over perfect treatment, battling shock with plasma and hemorrhage control, often under direct fire. Scouting for new aid station sites was a terrifying ordeal. One close call brought him within 100 yards of German lines, a realization that literally made my blood run cold, fueled by fears of German atrocities against captured medics. He found a cool, capable aid man in Banks, and together they formed an effective command team, confronting the relentless dangers with pragmatic adaptability, determined to save every life they could. The swift Allied advance that followed the D-Day landings, while bringing profound gratitude from liberated French citizens, also thrust soldiers into unexpected and intense combat. The joy of being hailed as liberators, of seeing Liberté, Egalite, Egalite, Fraternite emblazoned on city walls, was often abruptly replaced by the brutal reality of a still determined enemy. This period of rapid movement, far from signaling an easy victory, exposed the Allied forces to a war that remained unpredictable and savagely contested. Even after the intense fighting and life-saving efforts at places like Château-Audun, which marked a profound personal milestone for the medic, confirming his skill under fire, the war continued to extract its toll. The combat medic, Captain John Kapstein, found himself grappling with hepatitis, a debilitating illness likely contracted amidst the unsanitary conditions of Normandy, though recuperating in a field hospital surrounded by more space and less immediate danger. Deep-seated loyalty to his unit, to the men he had shared so much with, he made a conscious, career-defining decision to go AWO from the relative safety of the hospital and return to his battalion aid station. This act, a quiet defiance of orders, underscored his profound commitment, a testament to the bonds forged in the crucible of war. Even in periods of relative quiet, such as the week spent in Nancy, the psychological weight of the conflict was palpable. Soldiers grappled with uncertainty, reflecting on lost plans and the profound changes wrought by months of combat. Kapstein, observing his own aging and the emotional withdrawal of his aidman, Tony, felt the pervasive strain. Yet, the human spirit, resilient and yearning for normalcy, persisted. In cafes jammed with people, where 10-piece orchestras played American swing and pre-war waltzes, and in the fleeting glamour of a Marlene Dietrich performance, soldiers sought solace. It was in this delicate balance between lingering trauma and the desperate search for connection that Kapstein met Colette at a Red Cross canteen. This encounter, marked by a passionate kiss and her promise of domain, represented a turning point. A powerful glimpse of a future beyond the war, a whisper of hope in a world consumed by conflict. But that fragile peace was brutally shattered. The winter campaign of November and December 1944, in Lorraine and the Ardennes, proved to be a brutal and unexpected escalation. Exposing a critical US Army unpreparedness for winter combat, the Allied forces, buoyed by their rapid sweep across France, had held a dangerous assumption that the German army's back was broken after Normandy. This myth was violently debunked. The Germans, far from defeated, proved their tenacity with fierce defences, utilizing mines, barbed wire, and planned fire zones, backed by the formidable superiority of their Tiger tanks and deadly 88mm guns. This stark reality challenged any lingering notion of a quick victory. The unexpected German breakthrough in the Ardennes, later known as the Battle of the Bulge, caught Allied forces entirely by surprise. The news that our line across the Ardennes had collapsed spread like wildfire, creating a terrifying atmosphere. Bad weather, grounding crucial air support, and misallocated fuel supplies had contributed to the vulnerability. The shift was dramatic, from a perceived victory and the anticipation of rest in Metz on Christmas Eve to a desperate very minutes of just immediate redeployment to counter the German offensive. The abruptness of this command underscored the war's unpredictable and unforgiving nature, leaving men to subsist on cold, canned rations even as they saw a small, cotton-decorated Christmas tree in their makeshift station. The Battle of the Bulge pushed American forces to their absolute limits, physically, mentally, and logistically. The conditions were horrific, with tremendous casualties, and men literally freezing before aid could reach them. The roads, torn up by heavy vehicles, and a landscape marred by the detritus of war, bore witness to the desperate struggle. Resilience and resourcefulness became not just virtues but necessities for survival. Amidst this chaos, the successful, albeit perilous, resupply mission into Bastogne proved critical. Riding on a tank for cover through sub-zero temperatures and blackout nights, the medic and his aid men braved 85 miles of enemy territory to reach the encircled 101st Airborne. Their arrival, though met with cheers, quickly gave way to the grim reality of attending to the influx of wounded. But Bastogne held, halting the German advance and preventing a major breakthrough that could have irrevocably altered the course of the war. This brutal experience also implicitly debunked the romanticized idea that all soldiers were eager for glory. Many, particularly the experienced enlisted men who had witnessed the true cost of combat, prioritized survival and the meticulous completion of their jobs over heroic acts. Kapstein himself, abandoning his earlier risk-taking mindset, decided against wearing his combat ribbons, feeling thousands of others deserved them more. His new mantra was simple: just do my job. Be careful, don't do anything stupid. This pragmatic shift reflected a profound understanding of war's true nature. Despite the exhaustion and ongoing strategic disagreements between generals like Patton and Eisenhower, the eventual crossing of the Roa River, a testament to the bravery of engineers working under fire, marked a significant and hard-won step towards invading Germany, a turning point in the final push towards victory. The relentless Allied advance, a churning tide of steel and men, swept across the Siegfried Line and plunged deeper into Germany. The nature of combat shifted, trading the open fields of France for the brutal, unforgiving labyrinth of urban warfare. Though cities like Venlo had been liberated, their hard-won freedom came at a significant human cost. A brief, bloody stop on the inexorable push eastward. For the narrator, combat medic, the cumulative strain of this relentless fighting was immense. A brief, dreamlike interlude in Paris, a city whose enduring beauty stood in stark contrast to the scarred landscape of war, offered a profound psychological break. It was a fleeting reminder of the civilization they were fighting to protect, a world of art and music that seemed impossibly distant from the mud and blood of the front. But the advance into the German heartland ripped away any lingering illusions about the enemy. The horrors of Gardelegen, a stark, visceral tableau of Nazi depravity, solidified the grim purpose of their fight. In a barn outside the town, the SS had immolated 1,000 souls, Jews, gypsies, and other undesirables, shooting those who clawed at the walls for escape. The commanding general's order forcing the townspeople to individually bury each charred body in a clean sheet was a horrifying mandate designed to confront them with the atrocities committed in their name. This event made it difficult for me, and I guess most others, to realize that humans could be so terrible to humans. It was a moral turning point, extinguishing any flicker of compassion the medic had once held for the Heinis. Strategically, the crossing of the Rhine at Rheinberg had opened the heart of Germany, but morally, Gard-Legea had laid bare its soul. The war's end brought with it a profound, almost disorienting relief. The jubilant meeting with Russian forces near the Elbe, a scene of unexpected camaraderie and shared victory, swiftly gave way to the complex dawn of peace. German forces surrendered in droves, and soldiers from both sides exchanged insignia and shared wild celebrations of singing, dancing, eating, and drinking. Yet the jubilance was tempered, not just by the lingering echoes of combat, but by the unsettling news of President Roosevelt's death, casting a shadow of uncertainty over future leadership and the delicate dance between Truman, Stalin, and Churchill. Then, on May 8, 1945, at 10:15 a.m. VEE Day was officially declared. The air raid siren in Hanover sounded the all clear, a reverberating symbol of the new life beginning. For the medic, the sheer weight of relief manifested in his first experience of being truly, sickeningly drunk. The focus shifted from combat to demobilization, yet the peace was a fragile thing, complicated by the millions of displaced persons and former forced laborers wandering the countryside, their survival often dependent on pragmatic, difficult choices that blurred the lines of allegiance, challenging any simplistic notion of universal welcome for liberations. This disorienting transition was further complicated by the arrival of new, strict commanding officers. Colonel Willard W. Hall, a respected leader physician and friend to the officers of the 110th Medical Battalion, departed, leaving a void. His replacement, a rear echelon figure untouched by the front's crucible, abruptly shattered any illusions of a relaxed demobilization. This GI officer, with no combat experience, imposed rigid discipline and spit and polish. His immediate confiscation of a captured German truck, which the men had lovingly repainted olive drab and loaded with hard-won French cognac, cordials and wine, a small indulgence earned through months of brutal combat, was seen as a profound insult. It symbolized a perceived disregard for the combat veterans' experiences and hard-won indulgences, fueling deep resentment among men who felt entitled to relaxation. They believed the old guard had taken all the good positions and that experienced personnel were not being promoted, leaving them trapped in the least attractive duty, with rumors of sailing for the Pacific via Marseille. Driving through Germany, a stark dichotomy emerged. Industrial cities like Dortmund and Essen lay in utter devastation, hardly a wall standing, making the legendary San Francisco earthquake seem like a picnic. This widespread urban destruction had temporarily converted Germany from a nation of city dwellers to one of farmers. Yet, beyond the skeletal remains of urban centers, a different Germany emerged, surprisingly preserved and idyllic. The narrator, a combat medic and captain fluent in German, found a profound, almost disorienting respite in this unexpected landscape. His personal assignment to the undamaged Moselle Valley town of Brodenbach, near Koblenz, offered a dramatic contrast to the shattered cities he had witnessed. The Moselle region was stunning, with hills rolling down to the river, terraced vineyards of native stone, and beautiful old castles, silhouetted against the sky, resembling Christmas cards. It was in this tranquil setting that a deeper human connection began to heal the invisible wounds of war. Aggie Fritzen, the administrative secretary at his Delhousing station, became an unexpected anchor. Her beauty captivated him despite the shortage of materials for clothing and shortage of fuel. Their shared walks along the Mosel bathed in the ethereal glow of starlight, or perhaps it was moonlight, and the quiet intimacy of their connection fostered a profound shift within him. The man who had once struggled with confidence as an intern now had once struggled with confidence as an intern. After coping with the raw realities of combat, found a newfound inner strength, he reflected that man is fundamentally a good guy, a belief forged not in the absence of horror, but in its crucible. This period fundamentally altered his self-perception, leading to increased confidence and a re-evaluation of his priorities, implicitly challenging the idea that soldiers only experience trauma. He even contemplated marriage, a thought that would have been unthinkable just months before, a testament to the enduring human capacity for connection and growth amidst destruction. The cessation of hostilities in Europe and the strategic bombing that brought Japan to its knees finally offered Captain John Kapstein a chance to breathe, though it came with the stifling boredom of Camp Norfolk. The dusty fields and rudimentary tents felt like a desolate purgatory after the crucible of combat. Paris, however, promised an escape, a vibrant reawakening for senses dulled by war. He'd had a fleeting taste of the city during a wartime leave, but this post-VJ Day period allowed for a deeper, more profound immersion. His first post-war trip to Paris, this time with his steadfast companion David Roth, confirmed its magic. The initial sting of the unfavorable exchange rate, a mere 50 francs for $1 of army pay, compared to 100 on the open market, quickly gave way to ingenuity. Kapstein discovered the power of the barter system. A fine bottle of cognac could fetch 5,000 francs, enough to buy days of Parisian delight, while cartons of cigarettes were currency at places like Pigalle. This financial liberation was a key, unlocking the city's heart. He found solace and luxury at the elegant Crillion Hotel, its opulent bathroom a dream compared to the primitive conditions of camp. From his window, the Grand Place de la Concorde stretched before him. He spent hours in the Louvre, marveling at the splendid winged Victory and the much more beautiful Mona Lisa, both recently returned from wartime hiding. He walked the Champs-Élysées, admiring the excellent taste of French fashion and displays at Guerlain and Chanel. In Montmartre, he played piano in a small bar, the owner generously offering free drinks, and later visited the sophisticated cafes of Montparnasse. He ascended the Eiffel Tower for its splendid view, and was deeply moved by the brilliant reds and blues of Sainte-Chapelle's stained-glass windows. The afternoon sun poured through those radiant scenes, encouraging him to look up toward heaven. He even found a fleeting romance with Odile, an attractive salesgirl. Their intimate encounters a return to normalcy and sensual discovery. I had learned more and more to enjoy life as it comes, and worry about the future when such concern might do some good, he reflected, feeling more at home in Paris than at any other city besides San Francisco. But the end of the war, though celebrated with an explosion of cheers at an immoral nightclub on VJ Day, brought its own complicities. The Army's demobilization point system, designed to facilitate a staggered return, quickly became a source of deep resentment. Combat infantrymen, who had faced the greatest risks and endured the harshest conditions, accumulated fewer points than those in rear echelon support roles. Kapstein, despite earning a rare combat medical badge and 5 battle stars, had only 59 points, well short of the 85 needed for the first wave of discharges. It became a bitter joke that headquarters types with pull were sailing home faster, leaving combat veterans feeling discarded. Before that journey home, an unexpected windfall transformed Kapstein's immediate future. At Camp Lucky Strike, a staging area, he won approximately £400 in a high-stakes poker game, besting a major who bet his watch. This significant sum, more than half a year's salary, was too much to carry subtly, a musette bag full of £1 notes. But it provided the means for an extensive post-war adventure, a 2-week leave to England, with Dave Roth. They travelled to Southampton and then to London, booking a suite at the Savoy Hotel, a stark, luxurious contrast to their military existence. The imposing lobby and formal staff were a world away from foxholes and aid stations. Their best combat clothes, cleaned and pressed with razor creases, and shining shoes, felt like a costume. They savoured large tankards of beer, feeling just marvellous. London, a city of stark contrasts, revealed iconic landmarks like Buckingham Palace and St. Paul's Cathedral, miraculously survived amidst vast areas of devastation where reconstruction had not yet begun. They dined at Rule's, possibly the city's oldest restaurant, sampling rare grouse and Maiku doho. The London theatre scene offered much-needed laughter, with shows like Sweet and Low and See How They Run. A trip to Oxford introduced them to the ancient beauty of colleges like Merton and Magdalen and the grandeur of Blenheim Palace. Kapstein even found a brief, refreshing connection with Rebecca, a wren whose pragmatic desire to forget the war mirrored his own excess. Finally, in early September on the 5th, Kapstein boarded the Queen Mary for home. The ship, designed for luxury, now carried 15,000 men of the 35th Division. Though officer cabins meant for 2 now housed 6, the dining room retained its elegance, requiring ties and overseas caps. The journey was filled with card games, Kapstein's considerable funds giving him an edge. No one complained. We were going home. On September 10, 1945, the Queen Mary arrived in New York, a colossal symbol of triumph. Its huge horn blew, and soldiers leaned out of portholes beneath banners proclaiming, "Hello America 35th Division and dear Mom your boy has returned." But for Kapstein, the triumphant fanfare felt strangely hollow. Only 15% of his original battalion-level soldiers had returned to New York, and the division had suffered 25,000 casualties. The medics, like him, had contributed to a remarkable 99% survival rate for the wounded, but the cost was immense. Eager to reach San Francisco, Kapstein skipped traditional transport, taking his first plane ride on an old DC-8, whose door was held shut with baling wire, a detail he overlooked in his haste to be home. San Francisco, clean and bright, appeared unchanged, a jarring contrast to the war-torn landscapes etched in his memory. His reunion with family was emotional. Eula, a longtime family employee, greeted him with a warm hug and fried chicken. His parents became teary-eyed, and he caught up with his sister and her children, reminding them of their names on his command truck. Yet, the initial 30 days of leave were marked by a profound depression and alienation. Civilians, seemingly oblivious to the war's horrors, had gone about their lives as usual. Dates with young women, who did not understand what war was about, felt boring and disconnected. His hopes for an immediate return to civilian life were dashed on November 6, 1945, when orders sent him to Camp Breckinridge, Kentucky, a godforsaken spot with little to do. Frustrated by the Army's slow demobilization, he petitioned a senator, an act that led to a punitive reassignment on November 20, 1945 to Wakeman General Hospital in Camp at Atterbury. Here, his military career took an unexpected turn. He was assigned to plastic surgery, under Colonel Blocker, a world-renowned surgeon, specializing in reconstructing faces partially blown away. Kapstein learned intricate techniques, such as creating a tube of abdominal wall tissue and using very fine stitches, a profound professional development from combat medic to reconstructed surgery. Colonel Blocker's patient-centered approach, placing men near completion with new patients, fostered morale. Despite the engaging work, Kapstein remained restless, yearning to escape army bureaucracy. His personal life, however, brightened when he met Gwen on a blind date. She was bright, worked for the state, and lived in a lovely Spanish-style home. Their first date at the Mark Hopkins Hotel was transformative. As she tried a bourbon and soda, after initially ordering a soft drink, he felt a surge that signaled something special. Their connection deepened, leading to a secret engagement in February 1946. Determined to be with Gwen and out of the army, Kapstein made a critical choice. Ordered to Camp Beale, California, on January 14, 1946. For processing, he refused a promotion to major and an offer to sign up for the reserves. He wanted his immediate discharge. A sympathetic tech sergeant helped expedite his orders, and he finally received his discharge, including 6 weeks of terminal leave with full pay. Hitching a ride to San Francisco, he carried a chest full of ribbons and his combat medical badge, symbols of a past he was ready to leave behind. On June 16, 1946, he married Gwen, establishing a new life and a future finally his own.